Please welcome Courtney Starr.
Motherfucker, I've been mortified, 45, feeling like a Mordecai. I ain't regular, feel like Jordan wearing 45. Traumatized, victimized, seen some of my die. Knock you off a base with a bat when them niggas fly.
Here we go. Hey everybody, what is up? I've got Hadlee here, your new IFBB Bikini Pro who took second in her class at the USA's. We are going to delve into a little bit of Hadlee's experience. She's done multiple preps before. She's been competing. She's a mom. She had to overcome some different things in this prep and previous preps. And we're going to get into all of it. So Hadlee, how you doing?
So good. Thank you so much. I'm excited to talk about a journey that, never thought I would be here as a pro. Still feels surreal, but excited to chat about this and share a little bit about what that journey has looked like because it was crazy.
Yes, it's always crazy. So you're still kind of coming off a high from that last weekend. So Hadlee just turned pro last weekend at the USA, so it's only been a week. Are you still like, how is that settling with you since you've gone home and kind of got back into your normal routine?
It feels, this time it feels different, obviously. But I see myself like behaving differently, or at least holding myself to almost like a different standard as far as like, okay, you're a pro. Like you're competing with people who do this as their career. You're juggling a lot, but like, so you're going to have to approach it differently than I have in the past. Because when I first got into bodybuilding, it was definitely just something I wanted to do to get in shape years ago and ended up falling in love with it. But yeah, it definitely feels surreal. Like, wow, okay, we're here. I mean,
Yeah,
we're not here. There's still so much to do, but like, I never thought I would be here. I remember looking at my first pros, and I honestly didn't even have it on my radar on my first show because I was like, there's no way I would ever be able to look like that. So
yes. Okay, so was there that kind of brings, so we'll kind of go back to what got you into bodybuilding, but was there a moment where you realized like, oh, like maybe I could go pro, or was there a moment where you had that belief in yourself and you were like, you know what, maybe I can do this?
I would say it did take someone outside of me, and that's kind of a theme for my life, and unfortunately I hate that, but it does, someone to like be like, hey, like you would be so great at this, and then it like opens up the floodgates, and I feel like my energy then can like support that and back that up. But it almost, I would say the moment would be like when you and you took me on, like your first assessment, you were just like, oh, you have got so much potential. And for whatever reason, like just hearing you say that, I was like, oh, do I? Like I really do. So for me, that was like my moment. And again, I hate that it takes like an external force, but for me, that's what it took, is for someone to see something inside of me that I didn't see in myself. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, and I mean, you say it like it's negative, but I don't think it is. As a coach and somebody who mentors people in the sport, I feel like that's your job is to pull that potential out of people. We talked a little bit about how it's mental, and you have to convince that person to see the vision. It's my job to see where can you go, where are we at right now, how far do we have to go, what's a realistic time frame? Because you as a coach need to set your people up for success. You want them to have a good experience, reach a level they've never reached before. I think it's important to be realistic with timelines and how quick that can happen and what it's going to take to get there. But if you see it, you got to recognize it, and you need to plant that seed that that person can grow, and you guys water together. And that's what makes champions. I firmly believe that. So I'm glad. I don't think it's negative that sometimes it takes that external source. I think I think that it's
And in the sport too, I think with it being so individual, it's an individual sport. You're watching these people from behind a screen. You're not seeing these people in action, that you don't really know, like, if you have that potential, right? So a coach that has all of this experience and has seen all these different bodies and is like, yes, like you can do this. you do need that because again, it's one thing just looking from afar and being like, I'll never look like that. It's like, you you really will look like that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just the execution of those daily activities and kind of that delayed gratification, which
Hmm.
when we did our first prep, I was telling you it was insane to me because every week you checked in, you were on top of it. You didn't really have a lot of questions or feedback. You were just going through, you were executing every week. Like it's very rare that you see linear progress where this person is drop, 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 improve, improve, improve. I mean, you didn't skip a beat and it was like improve, 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 improve all the way into your show. And I was like, I remember being a couple weeks out and I'm like, she's ready. Like I was like, she's ready. So now I just gotta kind of coast you in. And then it's just a matter of like peaking perfectly. But I mean, you took overall, and that was at the ace of stage, the
Hmm.
first one that we did, and then you went to Utah. But yeah, I mean, that was I kind of knew I was like, wow, she's ready ahead of time. I think she's gonna be tough to beat. You know, you never know if somebody's gonna win. It's bikini, it's a roulette, but I knew you
Yeah,
were gonna be tough to beat, and you took the overall. And can you talk a little bit about how that
that's
prep
so
was
fun.
on your side? Because for me, it looks like it was just like win after win after win, week after week after week. You did everything I said. You had minimal questions. I was like, easy day. How was it for you?
It was I think again, that first assessment from you and just knowing that like there's potential there, it's like I just knew to step aside like mentally and just trust the process because I have had coaches before in the past where I couldn't fully trust. Like I just was like, oh, but what about this or what about that? Um, and for whatever reason, I just like clicked with you and it was like, oh, okay, like blinders on, do this. And it was a completely different prep from the other ones that I've had that have been a little bit more difficult. That one just for whatever reason, it was easy for me to mark off the boxes and just to go week by week.
That is amazing. And yeah, that's kind of how it felt for me too. I was like, wow, this is a pretty seamless prep. And then, so that because that was in Vegas, we got to meet in person for the first time. I loved your energy. I felt like we vibed right away. It was awesome. You killed it. Your presentation was on point. That was wonderful. And I love how
So
even now
fun.
it's like NPC USA Nevada, CM, so they're still posting you. You're on every poster. I meant to grab you one. I'm going to grab you one before the next Ace of
Oh, I
Stage.
would love
Save it
that.
for you. Yes, I'm going to save it. So then, okay, so you win in overall and then you compete in Utah and you win again, not in overall, but you take your class and you compete for the overall. And so going from shows back to back, so you had about 2 weeks in between.
Hmm.
How was that 2 weeks going from show to show? Because that can be really challenging.
That I will say was challenging for me. I was excited to compete like locally and figured it would be good to get some like another stage time before nationals because our plan was nationals once I qualified at the Vegas show. And it was, I think, because again, since working with you is the first time that I felt, oh, there is more potential than I had ever thought before in the sport. And so shows in the past, because I think I've done 4 shows before I started working with you. Um, and my very first one was like pre-kids 2012 or something crazy, which I wish I had photos because that would be so fun to look at how cute the posing was in 2012 as a baby. But it was like after it's all about like the food and all of these things that you've starved yourself for all of this time. So going into a show back to back, I almost didn't catch that like, oh, just splurge mentality that I was like used to. And so I do feel like I had a couple of cheat days instead of like just a cheat meal. And it bled into that next show, like just mentally, like stress wise, right? Like
Yes,
it I
it's
I
hard to
did
open
not bring my
Pandora's
best.
box and then close it to get locked in for
Mhm.
another show again. Because even it's like sugar. It's like you have a little bit and you just want more. You taste that stuff that you've been missing. You take one bite and you're like, oh my God,
It's
get it. Like
so bad.
hard.
I
Yeah.
I sometimes, you know, I go to AA, so I'll just put that out there. Alcohol is a big part of my story. And it's sometimes I feel like sugar is like alcohol. It's like one sip and it's like, oh, we're going hard. Let's have all of the candy. And so it's learning that it doesn't have to be that way. But that back-to-back show was difficult, and I wouldn't like at the time I was like, oh, I would never do a back-to-back show again. Wouldn't necessarily say that now, um, because my mindset has changed. But
Yeah,
at that time, it was difficult.
right. And then, okay, so then from there, so we had planned on going to nationals, which you decided not to go for a whole bunch of different reasons. So if it's okay with you, I want to touch on some of those challenges that you overcome. You briefly mentioned that you have been to AA and that alcohol is something that you struggle with, and that's not just you, that's a lot of people. And so if you want to touch on that and kind of that time period where things were a little
Yeah.
wobbly, I think that that would be really insightful.
Yeah, it was after that second show, um, in Utah. Like I said, we were planning on that December show, and this was October, so it wasn't even that long. It was going to be 8 weeks or something between, but um, it was it was like I just crashed. And I look back and I definitely know that it was introducing alcohol. I'm someone who can lean towards being more depressed than like anxiety ridden. Um, and so adding a depressant and something that was messing with my emotions, and I had no like, oh, this is it wasn't just like social. It was like for me, it was like how I was able to unwind from work. Like it was like what I needed to move into like the next phase of the day. Like, okay, I'm, you know, um, bossing all day, and then I've got to like have a drink so that I can actually like mom and I can be present and not be like so feel so insane. Now that compounded made me insane. And and again, just for me personally, it made my depression really, really bad. And I could not pull myself out of it. And I even had I had a therapist who at that time, and this is when I finally decided like, hey, we're not going to do the show. She had said, you probably need to look at like rehab. And I'm thinking, I have a successful job, career, like my I'm parenting my kids. Do we have some hiccups? Are we perfect? No, it's not like I have dinner cooked every night. But I'm like, rehab is for people who don't have their shit together. But I look back and I was like, she she was right. Not that I ended up needing rehab. I was lucky enough to have found AA and found a way for me to get sober. And I needed that. I 100% needed that. That's what helped me in going into this show and getting my pro card was like sobriety, and it took me having AA. But yeah, that was a huge mental block. And again, I'm not quite sure. The only thing I can think of is that after that show, introducing alcohol back just made me crash.
Yes, and alcohol can have that effect on people. This is something that's really common, and I really appreciate you opening up and being vulnerable about that because it is something that can be uncomfortable to talk about, and people are going to have their, thoughts about one way or the other. But I think that you deciding to kind of not proceed with the show and take care of your mental health and your health and who you are outside of bodybuilding and outside of fitness first is part of what led to your success here because you have to take care
Mhm.
of that first. Like a lot of us, most of us are not career athletes. Even if you compete, you're a mom, you have another job, there's a lot of other things going on, there's a lot of other roles that you fill, and those cannot go to the wayside for a bikini competition. That's the reality. And so I think it's really, really valuable that you took the time to invest the time and energy into that. And what would you say the time frame was on that? So after the show, we did reverse diet you. You were still continuing
Mhm.
on with the menu plan again, shaky, but you were showing up. That was
Yep.
one thing too throughout your improvement season and through everything that you've been through. You showed up every week. You were very open. We really worked together, I feel like, to what's going to help Hadley succeed. What is Hadley? What can we do to like create a situation that's going to help you be successful? And so how was fitness working in with the AA and the therapist and all of that?
It was huge. I mean, for me, I needed I needed I needed something to help me through like all of that recovery. And it's like you said, to have you with me every week for my check-ins and still showing up, even though I knew, like, I look back at those photos and I'm like, that is insane what happened to my body under that like stress. But I was able to still show up every single week and check in. Maybe missed a couple weeks here and there, but for the most part, it was every week. And you were a huge support for me to know that, okay, I might not be ready to compete again right now, but it's like not off the table, right? You kept that faith in me when all I could do was show up for that check-in, right? Like that's all I could do was show up for that check-in and know that this is the best I did this past week, and it was the best that I could do with what I was working with mentally, and to like let the rest go. But having you as support was huge in this past like year and a half. It was really awesome to be able to have that. And fitness, you will actually see a lot of people in AA that are like addicted to the gym. It's like you go from one addiction to the other one. And I think
Yeah.
it's just you don't realize how much time something like that takes in your life. The think you're thinking about it, you're then drinking about it, and then it feeds into obviously the next day, right? So there's just like all of these things, and you take that out, and you're like, oh, I need something to occupy my mind because I'm feeling like, how do I combat the craziness that I'm feeling in my body?
Yes, and like that state of mania almost. It's like you're at the end
Hmm.
of the day, you've been going all day, all day, all day, and it's like thing to thing to thing to thing, and you're just like, I
Yes.
you almost like have to keep going. You're like, what do I do now? Like you're looking for something to do because you've been going all day. And so that I understand where that need like for an outside substance to be like, okay, I need to stop. I
Yep.
need to stop and chill out right now. So that's a lot. And I really appreciate too. Like it meant a lot that, I was able to be there for you and that you showed up no matter how hard it was. And like it makes me happy that I was able to be there for you through all of this and go through the improvement season and the ups and the downs. It's what I live for, honestly. And so going through that, when did you know that you were ready to do another prep again? Or was there a moment, or did I kind of encourage you? Like, remind me, when did we
It
decide USA's or, kind of put that on the map?
I would say it was after I found AA. So it was once I could finally come to the conclusion, like I could finally admit my problems, like look in the mirror and be like, okay, this is an issue. This isn't normal. Um, for me, once I could have that moment, I could then assess the other things in my life because before I was almost seeking this external, like, okay, if I compete, I'll feel better. Or if I change jobs, I will feel better. Or if I do X, Y, and Z, I will feel better. All of these external things when it was like, no, like my center is so off gravity right now because of the drinking that I can't even like hear my own intuition and feel my own intuition. So once I came to face my demons and was like, okay, I was called out on my bullshit and I could actually face it. I then felt like I could properly assess some of these external things that I wanted to do. Um, and changes I wanted to make and see if they were appropriate. And for me, I knew that getting on stage was then ready. So it was like March, I think. And you and I just had some hard conversations. You were like, you either decide to do this or you don't, but like that's ultimately up to you.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember. It was a big moment for me. Something you said, and I wish I could think of it. It will probably come to me
I want
later.
to know what I
But
said too. I
I
forget
know.
sometimes. You know, when I'm doing check-ins, I'm in the zone. Like I'm in my coaching mode, and I'm like, oh yes, like I'm ready. I'm feeling it. This person needs this, vibing. So sometimes I do. I get carried away. I get excited.
It's like
I bring
motivational.
energy.
Yeah, I need to find the video because I did. I had it like on replay. I was like, oh, okay, replay this. Like even throughout that, like the week that there was like a 2-week time frame that I felt like I made that change and was ready to prep. Um, and I did. I rewatched that certain video over again. Like I'm one of those cheesy people that listen to the motivation videos like on my way to the gym. And so there was a certain thing that you said, and it was just again calling me out in a nice way, a loving way, but basically being like, hey, you either want this or you don't. And you have to know your why. It was about my why. That's what it was.
Yes, the why is everything. The why is everything because it's what you make decisions based off of. And, I think that there's a lot of power in that and really sitting down and thinking about it. And it's a buzzword that people throw around social media, but the way I see it is a lot deeper than that. And in my webinar series, I described it to people as something that it's like, it's not even just the principle of the why statement. There's actually why statements you can write, but you want to like the words, like you want to put thoughts and intention into each word. And the challenge is like it takes time to fine tune it, but your why statement should be so powerful and you should like the word so much that you would potentially tattoo it on your body. Not saying anybody has to go get tattoos, but you want to like it enough that that's something that you'd be like, yeah, of course
Oh
I'd
yeah.
rep that or I'd wear that, you know? But
Yeah.
yeah, that's really powerful. So then we move into prep and then week to week, I would say you still struggled with a little bit of self-doubt going into the prep.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that from your side?
Yes. So I struggled up into, I mean, you saw it. I struggled up into the show, like with doubt. But I did get to a certain point, and it might have only been 6 weeks prior to the show that I finally was like, shit or get off the pot. Pardon my French. That's what it like felt like in my mind was like, you sign up for the show or you do it, you know. But I doubted myself so much. And do I love that? No. But I do think that is totally normal, especially when you're in, again, an individual sport like this. It's you against you. You don't have a team to rally. It's like you have to have a really good coach. You have to have, in my personal opinion, a really good coach to help you. Otherwise, you live in that head, and that head is not, it's trying to analytically look at everything. And I'll be honest, sometimes our brains are supposed to just shut off and we're just supposed to go inside and like follow that fire, follow that intuition. But our mind's like, wait, hold on. We gotta like just overthink everything to make sure that we're safe. And it's like, we are safe. We are fine.
We
But it was like a doubting game up into a certain point. Um, and I mean, even the day, like a couple days before the show, obviously there's just so much like fear of like, don't get your hopes up, right? And emotions that way. But I am very grateful that I stuck, despite the doubt, like I stuck through it. Or if I did have some of those ups and downs, like I said, it wasn't like the previous prep where it was every single week I was dropping and we were making significant changes. It wasn't like that because I would have these moments where, again, I was learning to cope from like using alcohol as a, you know, as a way to deal with my life to not having that security blanket at all. And so sometimes it would be, eating. And I'd be like, yeah, Courtney, this is what happened. And so there was a lot more, it wasn't as steady, like as far as like
Yes.
progress, or however you want to say, as it was the year prior.
And I love that you bring that up because for anybody watching this, it is not necessarily about perfection. Like Hadley's had a perfect prep and she's had not perfect preps. And guess what? One of her not perfect preps was the one that led to a pro card. What was different was that she still showed up. She was honest, so I could make decisions and adjust her plan based on what actually happened, based on her mindset. You guys, your coach looks at your mindset. If somebody's eating off plan, you have to get, like, for me, instead of berating them, you get to the root of why. Why did you eat off plan? What was the emotion? Was it more than once? Was it at the same time of day? What is happening to lead to that? And then your brain, because my job, like plain and simple, is to get people to their goals, to the stage. And the way that I do that is I learn how to use their habits and their mindset to my advantage to get them to where they want to go. So if I can get to the root cause of what is she doing? Is it at the same time? Can I put something else in its place? What would be better? Sometimes it's not perfect, it's what's better. And so that is how you get people all the way there when they're struggling, because anybody can prep somebody when they're perfect. Hadley's first prep, anybody could do that, honestly. Like, and you know what I mean? It's not hard to diet a perfect athlete, but we're humans. We go through emotions, we go through things. And it's, to me, as a coach, it's our job to use that person for who they are and their habits to get them there and figure it out. So I love that. Now, you mentioned doubting yourself all the way up until the show. So when it comes to the daily activities, your cardio, your training, your diet, how did you manage to execute on those things while doubting yourself the whole time? Because you still have to show up and there's some consistency that's needed in the
Yep.
push through.
Yep. You like, and I think that was the biggest thing is I knew consistency was necessary. Like I knew I wanted this, right? I again never thought that I would be here. So like I'm like the fact that I'm even going to nationals is incredible. Like I want to bring the best package. Like I knew I wanted it, but again had that doubt. So what I really had to be very intentional with was honestly a morning practice. Like I had to start every day solid. And I had to start every day just with myself. So I would wake up at 4:30 and I would sit and I don't meditate for an hour. I wish I could meditate and just sit there for 60 minutes, but that would make me go insane. I think in and of itself. But meditation and like journaling for me is huge first thing in the morning. So for me to be able to mark the things off that needed to happen that day to get me to my long-term goals, right? My goals down the road, and delay that immediate gratification of like food and all of these comfort things. um I had to get clear. I think again, I hate to bring that up again, but like the why, like get clear every single day on who I was, what mattered to me, where I was going, so that I could have the wherewithal to mark those boxes off. So it took just it doesn't even take an hour, but just like setting my day up right every single day helps me get the next things done that I know that I might not feel like doing when I wake up. But because I had that moment with myself in the morning to remind myself where I'm going, what I'm doing, who I am, and what matters to me, I can then do those hard things that I don't want to do or possibly don't want to do because I'm getting in my own way and doubting myself or whatnot.
Yes, and what that is kind of in from like a psychology perspective is you're creating an upward spiral. So you are literally taking hold of your day in that time, and when you talk about starting off on the right foot, the same way people will talk about a downward spiral, you can create an upward spiral by taking control. Then when I was in the military, the first thing we do every day is make our bed and make sure shit is in order, because then you're checking off a box and you're starting the day with a win. And if you can create that for yourself, you can then upward spiral, and that little checked box creates this dopamine response in your brain. And it's a lot easier for you to push through the hard stuff to get other things done. I want to put you on the spot a little bit for a second. So we keep coming
Okay.
back to the why. And you can take a second. What is your why? What is your why that got you through this time period, through the AA, through the prep, and to your pro card?
I would, my why is it's for my kids. I mean, it helps me to be able to see, because of this. If I don't follow my dreams and my passions, like I'm so passionate, I guess, about my kids having options and my kids being able to follow their hearts and do things that they want to do, because I feel like that is what the world needs more of, is people who are following their love of whatever. Because there's just when you love what you're doing, you're more generous, you're more kind, you're more like all of these things that our world needs more of when we're following our heart's desires. And so for me, my why is like, okay, if you want your kids to do this, you have to follow your heart. You have to follow these pulls that you're like, I have been pulled to compete. Like I said, since I stepped, my first stage was 2012. And I loved it. And I would tell myself reasons not to do it, right? And I would convince myself not to do it. Um, being raised really strict religion, it was like, oh, like it's you gotta have babies, right? Like these are the things that like you have to do, and if you're doing that, you are a sinful person. And so it would like take me out of my flow, because I'd be like, oh, conform to the world, conform to my world, right? Conform to my culture and my world around me. And my why literally is like, okay, Hadley, how can your kids get in the flow and find their own heart and follow their own desires if you're allowing the world to conform you? You have got to get clear on what you want. And so for me, like I said, I've always wanted this. I don't know why. I can't always speak to the random things that I want to do in my life, but
Because
I
bodybuilding is
wanted it.
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm such a
I was like,
bro.
I wanted
Okay.
it. So my
No,
why definitely comes from like, okay, it's honestly as simple as I believe in following my heart, because that sets the stage for my kids to do the same and to make their lives what they want and what they dream of. Like I am someone that truly does think there is so much possible with this life that we don't give ourselves a chance to really do or to think about. So
yeah. Absolutely. I love it. And I love how it's centered around your kids too and them opportunities. And there's so much they learn from you too. I mean, not even just eating healthy, but just you work really hard for something and you're rewarded for it. Like, I think that's huge in today's
and
society.
making sacrifices. I mean, I think we do live in this immediate gratification. I mean, good heavens, I want something on Amazon. Not gonna lie, sometimes if it's not same day delivery or the next day delivery, I'm like, oh well, do I really want it that bad? Which is so terrible. But like we live in this immediate gratification, and teaching, setting that example of like sometimes your goals are bigger than the day to day gratification is, yeah, sacrifice is just such a huge part of life.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, crushing it. So if you could give, let's say, well, actually, let's talk about what's next. Let's talk about what's next. So now you've got your IFBB Pro card. You've competed several times. You did your first show in 2012. You've always had this like pull toward fitness. So now what?
I know. I think that has been the what I'm trying to sit with, right? Is this, oh wow, never thought I would get here, wanted to, but never thought I would get here. And now that I'm here, it's a little bit of like, now what? But I do know for me, I want to get on stage sooner than later. The feedback wasn't grow more. I mean, I'm actually surprised to some degree. They're, with how tall I am, they're like, you could put on more muscle in like your glutes, but um, but it's not like I need time to grow. And so it's staying in shape and figuring out when we want to do that pro show. And right now, my focus is like, I want to do like get on that pro stage, do my pro debut, and from there, kind of decide what what the goal is. I mean, honestly, so cool to have like first call outs with pros would be amazing. Like with the people that are like Olympia qualified would be so amazing to have a first call out with them. And again, it's in my mind, there's always the realist in me that's like, that is so cute, Hadley, that you think that way. But
Gotta think that way. And I'll tell you
yeah.
what, like, I'm being in Vegas, there's a lot of top level athletes around here. And I can tell you this, they all think that way. Like, hey, like, I'm gonna try to do this. Like, why not me? You know what I mean? It's a mindset shift. Somebody has
Mhm.
to win. These people are coming up out of nowhere. Like, it really can be anybody's game, but you have to take it. This is another misconception about opportunity, you guys. It is not going to knock at your door. That's why they say seize the opportunity. You have to take it. It is not going to just magically appear for you. Hadlee took the steps. She's got a killer physique. She put herself in the right situation. She, not to call myself out, but she got herself the right coach. Like, she put herself in the situation and she made the sacrifices. She did the work and she seized that opportunity. And of course, this is never done by yourself. There's people along the way who are helping, supporting. Let's go Hadlee. Let's go Hadlee. Like, your coach is a big part of that. They should be supporting you, real with you, helping you, molding you, getting you to that next place. But I'm sure there's other people in your life who are cheering you on, who are supporting you, who are happy. There's people watching you that you don't even know about. But there are so many people who think that opportunity is just going to slap them in the face, and it doesn't work like that. You have to take it, you have to seize it. And when it comes to champions, they understand this. They will go take what's theirs, and if they fail, they will go again and they will pivot and they will adjust and they will keep going until they get what's theirs. They settle for nothing less. I love Darby's story, 3 feet from gold. I'm not going to say I'm a super big history buff, but I love that story. Darby, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but the point is,
But share a little bit. Yeah, I was like,
I
I
told
want
the
to hear
whole
this.
story in my webinar series. Okay. I told all of it. But the point is, don't stop 3 feet from gold. And if you're unfamiliar with that story, look it up, because the lesson that man learned about stopping from 3 feet from gold made him a millionaire on selling life insurance, because he would never make that mistake again. But my point is, like, I go crazy with the motivational too. I'm like, let's go, seize it, baby. Hadlee, what's next is she wants to get on the pro stage. The judges told her they love her look. Her presentation is beautiful. Suit beautiful. Hair and makeup beautiful. We nailed everything. We left no stone unturned. Her makeup was on point. Hair was on point. Like, it is so important, you guys, leave no stone unturned. You can't show up to a national show not confident in your makeup and your look. You guys need to and it changes. So, like, when you feel bossy with your presentation. We did a lot of posing sessions together. We would make little adjustments and I could see it. Like, she's like, ooh, yeah, like, it feels good. It feels different. When we nailed your walk, it feels different. You can bring that confidence because you did the work, you know what you bring. And here's the other thing with bodybuilding and bikini, you guys. I'm not going to say I knew how he was going to go pro. It could have been anybody's game, but I didn't need to see. I was not concerned with the other athletes. I knew what we were bringing. She was better than she'd ever been. She was on. There's this term of athletes being on, and it means their body's responding. They look right. The presentation's there. The whole package comes together. And when you're on, you know that you're on. And your coach knows that you're on and they tell you you're on. So it
Yep.
doesn't matter. It honestly, at that point, doesn't even matter if you win the show. It doesn't matter who shows up. It is, to be in that state is such a flex. And I love that we were there. And I'm going to drop some video of your posing routine in this. So now we got to come up with a pro routine. We're going to pick out a pro show. Like I said, when you're ready, when you feel good, we are going to make some improvements before that pro show. And
Mhm.
I do think that you should be talking to yourself like, I would love a first call out. Everybody should be shooting for a first call out. And honestly, when we're competing at the pro level, we're now competing for money. We're competing for sponsorships. We're competing for Olympia qualifications. We're competing for you. When you join the IFBB, you guys, you are now an ambassador for the sport, which means it's your job to bring people to it, to represent the IFBB with pride and fitness and introduce other people to that and show people how awesome it is. I believe that. So that is part of what you've just stepped into. And I'm really excited to be taking that next step and all of the new opportunities that I'm sure are going to come your way. So that's what I see for you. Not that you asked, but anyways, I kind of went on a tangent there. But
Yeah.
Hadley, if there was one piece of advice that you could give girls who are competing, who maybe think they might have something or they're interested, but they're maybe battling that self-doubt, what's one piece of advice that you would have for them?
Get out of your own way.
Mm.
100% get out of your own way. We are our own worst critics, and there is, I'm sure you know from like psychology, like there is this like survival that our brain is trying to put us through, that sometimes you just have to push that aside and literally check off the boxes. Like, despite the doubt, despite all of these things going on, just mark off the boxes, and that consistency, like over time, that compounds, and that is like the compound effect. If you've read that book, I love that book. But or Atomic Habits, maybe that's what it is, Atomic Habits. But anyways, it's like, yes, he talks about the compounded effect of like small little things, and it's, you mark off those things, and it might not feel like you had the best workout, but mark off the damn box, and you get it done, and you do that over and over again, and it accumulates, and that is where success is. And it's like you said, taking that leap, like meeting those, seizing the opportunity. Like, I just think that that is huge, because we'll doubt ourselves to living a very mediocre life if we allow that.
Yes, and that's one other thing that we talked about is I was like, I tell my athletes and I tell you and I tell some of them, I'm like, look, I don't necessarily need you to believe in yourself. My job is a lot easier when you do, but at least be open to the possibility of success. You should never ever be the first person to tell yourself no, and you should not be closing that door on yourself. At least allow yourself the opportunity to try, because the fear of rejection or the fear of losing or getting beat on stage in a bikini, that's real. Like, that is scary, and I think that's underestimated. And the fact, when you're willing to face that rejection, at least allow yourself the opportunity to succeed and walk through the door, even if you don't believe in yourself all the way. If you can do that once, it gets easier with time, with practice.
Yep.
It's like ripping off a band-aid. But
And
that was huge.
and I'll just really say real quick too with
Yeah.
that. I always tell myself, the fear of rejection, yes, is real, but what's worse? The fear of being rejected on stage because I went after something that I loved, or the fear of literally lying on my deathbed, being like looking at, like, what did I do anything that was really scary? Like, those are the things you're gonna remember when you're on your deathbed, is the shit that scared the hell out of you and you went for it anyway. Like, that is life changing things that you'll stay with you forever. That I just don't want to have regrets. I don't want to have regrets at the end of
Yes.
my life.
Yes. And okay, last thing before we get off here, I swear to God, you guys will be done soon. But you say these things. So this, you're overcoming rejection, you're overcoming fear, you're following a plan, you have discipline. Would you say that these habits that you've built through doing these preps, through committing to fitness, and through everything you've done has carried over into other aspects of your life or benefited you that way at
Oh
all?
yeah. Yes. Like, the discipline of, again, doing the things that are necessary in my career, in my, like, again, teaching my kids, raising kids, in my relationships. There's just this, I love myself. Like, I am putting, again, waking up in the morning and spending time with myself first. Like, there is, people can say that it's selfish, but I'm okay with that, because if I know who I am and I have a self, I'm completely fine with being considered selfish. But if you're showing up for yourself and loving yourself, like that bleeds into the way that we interact with other individuals. I'm a lot nicer person. I can come with light and love to even like work, which sometimes is very stressful. But I can deal with people a lot differently because of the things that I'm doing in my personal life, like bodybuilding. It's just huge. The characteristics and the attributes that you gain from this sport that then bleed into other areas of your life. Absolutely.
Yes, I agree 100%. Hadlee, the camera loves you. The judges love you. I love you, and I already know everybody. I mean, when we posted and you got your pro card and leading up to the show, everybody wanted to know, like, oh my gosh, who is this girl? Hadlee looks amazing. I was getting messages. Your girl looks incredible. Holy crap. Like other coaches are like, holy, that's your girl. Like they're telling me, like, oh my gosh. So you definitely you've made some impact that you may or may not realize, and I'm excited to continue sharing your story as we go forward. And thanks for getting on here with me and for the
Thank you.
whoever watches this. I hope this benefits you guys. And all right, I'm
Yeah.
gonna end the recording now.